I am dark and brooding as the night. All who come to me wonder at my mystery.
Or I'm just a cookie cutter backstory that's basically like a pizza cutter where it's all edge and no point. When it comes to character creation, probably one of the more fun aspects is writing out your backstory. But how can you write one that is effective for you to sink your teeth into to really understand the character and how to play them, and one that the Dungeon Master can use in the campaign? Well, right out of the gate, it should be stated that not every group is going to use the backstory in the campaign. That doesn't mean that's a bad group or that's a bad game, it just means that that's their playstyle. Potentially they just enjoy going into dungeons a bit more and slaying monsters and not really delving into intense story, because a story is happening, it's just not as detailed as some would like to do. So that is totally normal and just fine way of playing, so be aware of that. And with that disclaimer out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into making a great backstory. In my mind, it really consists of three specific parts. Starting first with, well, your ancestry. Well, you see, when two tieflings love each other very much. Nope, not like that. What I mean is basically just mentioning your character's ancestry at the beginning of your backstory. So you're playing a guy named Corin, a human who is 25 years old. That detail seems meaningless, but it can also impact a lot of things, and just lets the Dungeon Master confirm what ancestry you're playing. However, you can also play around with this detail. Take Doric, for instance, from Honor Among Thieves. She's a tiefling that was born to human parents, as is traditional in Faerun lore. As a result, her parents gave her up, not wanting a tiefling daughter associated with them, which resulted in her joining the Emerald Enclave and holding a resentment toward humans and eventual motivation to wanting to take down Forge and join the party. That one little detail provided a lot of character motivation. And this is why it's generally important to, well, state your ancestry, because it can provide details to the background of the character that even the Dungeon Master can pull from to tie the character into the campaign. Secondly is probably most obvious, how did you get your class? How are you a monk? How are you a fighter? How did you become a wizard or even a sorcerer? It can be a lot of things that's really fun to play with, but also at this point, you can provide additional NPCs for the Dungeon Master to play with, such as a mentor character, maybe additional family members that provided motivation for you to become a specific class. For instance, maybe it's a grand tradition of your family to join the Knights of the Realm, so you became a fighter in hopes of becoming a part of these knights. That's basically what my first character was, and his motivation for joining the Guards of Hyrule. Because, yeah, unsurprisingly, the first D&D campaign I ever was in was a Zelda-themed campaign. Some things never change. But regardless, it gave a little bit of context and character motivation for the overall campaign that the Dungeon Master was eventually able to pull from to, well, bring me further in. And also, it gave him NPCs to play with. And that's always the best part, when the Dungeon Master is giving characters either a villain or potential love interest or someone to just drive your character forward and, of course, maybe threaten a little bit. And then thirdly and lastly is providing your character with a reason to adventure. This can really be anything, and this is really where your character motivation begins to sink in. What drives your character? What do they believe? And this is something that we can lean into for the various character arcs. K.M. Weiland in her book addresses that there are three different types of character arcs: the positive change arc, the negative change arc, and the flat arc. So the flat character arc, for instance, is basically where the character starts out believing and knowing the truth and then effectively impacts the world around them. This is one of the more easy character archetypes to play in D&D because, well, you're already impacting the world throughout the story. So that allows you to play that out. It's an easy character archetype to play, and it's typically more of a blank slate, but can be a lot of fun, and there can still be character growth. Then the positive change arc is the one that we are most familiar with. So effectively, the character starts out believing a lie, but as the campaign progresses, they eventually start to learn the truth of the matter and embrace that truth. This is where you'll get something of wants versus needs. So you're a rogue thief and you want a lot of gold. Well, why do you need it? Or what do you actually need? This is where you can look back to, well, your ancestry with your family, or potentially how you became a specific class. What caused them to adventure? What caused them to want specific things? But in there, what do they actually need? And then from there is the negative change arc. This one's rather difficult to pull off, but it can be a lot of fun, and, well, basically it goes to the idea that your character starts out believing a specific truth, and they know the lie. But despite their best efforts, they will always start going downward toward the lie. This is where you can also do Oathbreaker Paladins. And it's one that you will definitely want to talk about with your players and fellow Dungeon Masters as a potential concept. But regardless, providing your character a reason to adventure. This is where the character motivation lies. This will give context to absolutely everything and tie everything into a nice little bow. And the nice part is, it doesn't have to be as detailed as you think it can be. It can be basically a paragraph or two. It can be multiple pages long, and doing all of that will basically help also reflect the character's level as well, and potentially even the higher level they go, maybe they've gone on a few adventures as well to give further context to their reason to adventure. And then, just as an additional help to your Dungeon Master, provide all the important details in bullet points. This does a few things. One, it does help out the Dungeon Master when reading through basically all of this information to get it in condensed form. Dungeon Masters still read the backstory, but having it be right there definitely does save me a step for something I was already going to do, but also it informs me from the player the important bits of information that they would like addressed. Please do that. It's a great way to communicate to your Dungeon Master the parts of the backstory that you want to be focused on. And also, again, just gives a quick little glance for the DM to look down when writing things out. And here's a little PSA for Dungeon Masters. Before you go seriously altering aspects of a player's backstory, get permission first. I've been in the shoes of a DM flat out just altering a major element of my character's backstory, and I won't lie, I did feel rather betrayed. It felt gross. But apart from that, everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you have some interesting backstory tips, let me know down below. And of course, as always, keep being awesome, everyone. Keep rolling those dice. Cheers.